guys want a shot at winning a copy of Call of Duty World War II for the console of your choice for absolutely free, a couple of my friends and I are doing a little giveaway. Link is down there in the description below. Go check it out if you're interested. We're in the final day now of the double-digit or anything more than single-digit countdown for Call of Duty World War II. This has been an incredible amount of time in the making. I know everybody is getting hyped now for this, and of course, with the months going by, getting us even more amped, the final couple of days may in fact prove to be the longest, but nonetheless, what we're going to be talking about here today actually continues a little bit of a series that we've done previously on the channel and you guys seem to really enjoy, and that being taking a look at some of the intricacies within the design of Call of Duty World War II. It is something in which, going back to the first game in a couple of years in which we've had direct realism and direct models that we can pull from in real life, we can take a look at and compare these things to what they are like in the game, see if they make sense or if they don't make sense compared to their realistic counterparts. So in this one, we're going to be taking a look at 5 more design quirks that realistically don't make all that much sense. Now, I said it in the past, but I'm going to reiterate it here in these videos because for those guys that may be brand new to the channel or that may be picking up with this episode not having seen the past couple of episodes, I by no means want this to come off as me trying to complain about the game or looking for reasons to complain about the game. I'm incredibly hyped. I'm going to play a ton of this game whenever it comes out, and of course, for all the developmental time that's gone into this game, there's going to be a few things here and there that do slip through the cracks, which is what we're essentially looking for. So these sorts of things don't necessarily upset me more so than just interest me. I'm fascinated by these things that unless you look for them, you otherwise may never know about. So hopefully that sort of message can come across clearly and it's not perceived as me trying to trash the game or anything like that. It's just stuff that I want to share with you guys that I think is rather cool whenever you look at it in a finer light. So that said, let's jump into our 5 little design quirks here with this one. Firstly, we're going to be jumping in with one of our rifles, an iconic one at that, and one that is a little bit interesting in how it has been approached, that being the M1A1 Carbine, or maybe just the M1. So the M1 actually in Call of Duty World War II is the variation of the carbine that is used. The M1A1 is a little bit of a different one. Though it is listed in-game as the M1A1, that's not necessarily the exact variation of the weapon itself. If you take a look at the weapon history, its design, and production dates and everything like that, the M1 is of course that base weapon. But if you take a look at it, there were different variations such as the M1A1, the M1A2, the M1A3, as well as the M2, M2A2, and the M3, therefore produced afterwards. So where this little design quirk comes into play is the fact that the M1 is the model that we end up seeing in the game, though it's listed not as such. If we take a look at the actual M1A1 carbine, this is actually something that was used with a little bit of a different design element to it. It was built for the paratroopers in the war and therefore had to be a little bit more mobile, a little bit more compact, and fit with all their stuff while they were jumping. Therefore, the base M1 got a little bit clunky and a little bit in the way and had to be adjusted and a little bit modified. So the M1A1 carbine ends up having a foldable stock that will be able to fold off to the side so that they can holster it on their side. Now, of course, it's not holstered as if a pistol would be something that just fits on your hip, but you get the picture. It's more compact and therefore allows for more mobility, and of course, while jumping as a paratrooper, that's something that can definitely be useful. Now, while the name does not match up with the model, what is interesting though is that both the M1 and the M1A1 have completely interchangeable parts save for that stock. So the backstory of this is that there would be many different companies making many different parts so that they could all push out together in this effort to create the weapons for the war. So when it comes down to it, the only difference here out of these is that stock, but still, the model and the name in World War II does not really add up. The final thing, one quick mention, is that perhaps it's just because of the M1 Garand, and that's something that is very possible as well too. They don't want 2 M1s in the game, so make that clear distinction and designation of an M1A1 and an M1. I don't know, just playing a little devil's advocate here with this one. Moving over into the second one, this is going to be a little bit more of a quirky design and probably just a little bit of a bug that will be fixed come launch. That dealing with a little bit of a character model showing up through smoke. Now, we talked about in a previous episode names showing up through smoke, and that might be just something that is a little bit of a bug with the Mountain Division skill sets, but this one showed up just by itself. That being the fact that goggles can show up through smoke, giving away your character position and your character model as well too. If somebody can make out the inference of where the head, shoulders, and everything else on your body is while seeing that goggle, that will be something that is very crucial and really a little bit of a crutch whenever using smokes. It's supposed to give you that cover that you so desperately need, and especially in war, that's something that could really be detrimental if you're going up and trying to play the objective there within. You'll just continuously get picked off left, right, and center by enemies that can see you by your goggles. Now, of course, this is from the beta, so I'm expecting this to be a little bit patched whenever the full launch of the game comes out in just a few days now at this point, but up until then, we don't necessarily know all that much. Now, the third thing I want to talk about actually jumps back over to the M1 Carbine, and this deals a little bit with the sight. This is something in which Call of Duty World War II has implemented a little bit of an interesting design choice for that iron sight that is standard with the weapon as soon as you unlock it. The sight itself dons an almost hood mentality here to it. It has a domed parameter around where your target is with the iron sight, and when you take a look at it in realistic standpoints, it has a post and wings shooting out from the side here, so there's no real dome that goes over that for most standard issue carbines that were produced. Now, I'm intrigued as to why this was taken this way in the design route, simply because previous versions of Call of Duty have gotten this sort of iron sight right, and if I'm not mistaken, World War II stands to be the only one that's changed up that iron sight in the franchise. I could be wrong on that, but having looked back, it seems like the majority of them are not only accurate, but stick true to their form across all the other titles as well too. So I'm intrigued to see why this might be the case, but nonetheless, if you're taking a look at it and comparing it to the realistic version of the M1, it's not in line. Now, the fourth thing I want to talk about here in this one deals with the Kar98K. Something that's right now we have not seen any footage, save from very little back in July at E3. I personally was out at E3 to get footage, so I had a little bit of it at my disposal, but not all that much. Once again, I didn't use it all that much. I was more so focused on trying to get decent gameplay, and admittedly, I'm not the greatest sniper, so that sort of thing kind of almost would have put me back, so a lot of it was just more so firing range stuff that I ended up getting, but nonetheless, the Kar98, we're 10 days away from seeing more of it, but right now, we have very little about this, and therefore it could be quite possible that it's fixed, but who knows. But the quirk that we're going to be talking about here today actually deals with the detachable magazine that was viewable at E3 rather than a top-fed stripper clip reload. Now, while in theory and experimental versions, there were versions of the Kar98K in which there was a magazine on the bottom, but what we see in the E3 gameplay is clearly a detachable magazine from the Kar98, almost as if acting how one of the M1 variations would work with that reload. But this is where it gets interesting, because if you take a look at that design in which you're inserting it from the bottom rather than the top, that's not only incorrect, but actually never been used that way. So first things first with this one is the fact that the experimental magazines on Kar98Ks were only used in World War I. There was no real evidence of it being used in World War II at all, but one also thing was that the magazine itself was not detachable. It was something in which it really only was meant to increase the ammo capacity and not how you reloaded the weapon itself. You would still add in your stripper clips from the top on the Kar98K, and therefore you'd end up having the ability to have more shots, but you never actually ended up changing how you reloaded. So therefore, in this sense, the Kar98K's animation for reload and, of course, how we end up seeing the magwell and everything like that, it's completely different than that of the real-life counterpart as well. Now, the final thing that I want to mention here actually is going to be the MG15, and there's going to be a little bit of an asterisk on this one, but I'll explain that in just a second. But that said, in Call of Duty World War II, from what we've seen thus far up until this point, we've only seen the MG15. But don't take that as it's going to be the only MG in the machine gun category, with the likelihood of the name. The MG42 has been seen in the game code and in the files there within, so it's more than likely going to be coming to the full game, and I'd put money on it, but until we have it in our hands, it's the only thing that we've been able to take a look at the moment for those MGs. Now, where everybody was kind of intrigued about this as to why this sort of design was taken was the MG15 was actually only primarily used as a weapon for aircraft, something that was mountable and placed out of the window of an aircraft and then shooting down on the enemies below. And if you take a look at the historical records, there is 99% of the use only in that fashion. So therefore, it makes it odd that players would be running around with an MG15 rather than something that is strictly mounted either on tanks, walls, aircrafts, whatever it may be, in which that was the primary use of the MG15, was a mountable machine gun. So in that sense, the design itself doesn't really make sense in which somebody could be going one-man army running around with this at their disposal, whereas it's primarily an air quote camping weapon. But as with our first quirk, if you want to play devil's advocate, at the very tail end of World War II, in sort of a desperation attempt, there were some reports of the Germans ending up taking those off of aircrafts and then using them as some of a last-ditch effort for their weaponry. So while it was something that was technically used in that sense in which somebody could have just walked around with an MG15, for 99% of the war, it was not like that. So I guess that one really comes down to how you perceive it, but still, nonetheless, as one of those primary weapons that is used a lot in World War II, at least thus far, it's interesting to see that sort of design choice. But that's gonna round out the 5 design quirks that realistically don't make all that much sense here at this episode. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I'd love to get your thoughts and feedback down there in the comment section down below. Do you guys have any quirks that you guys would like to add for a follow-up video? Do you guys have anything that you wanna argue here or this one? Whatever it may be, let me know down there in the comment section down below. But hopefully you guys did enjoy, and if you guys did, make sure you drop a like down below. And of course, if you guys are new to the channel, if you guys are getting hyped up for Call of Duty World War II, we're gonna be keeping you guys updated with everything you need to know, the best tips, tricks, news, information, leaks, whatever it may be. We'll keep you guys posted with all of it, so if you guys are interested in any of that, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a beat. And finally, if you guys want to follow me over on Twitter, that's the best place to get connected to me outside of YouTube. Practically live on Twitter, so if you guys want to strike up a conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, link is down there in the description below. But all that said and out of the way, hope you guys had a fantastic day. Thanks so much for watching. Mine is an espresso. Take care, and peace.